In question 1, we are working with simple interest, and we have the information here about the principal, which is the amount invested, the interest rate we're earning, and the time in years that the money will be earning interest. So I'm going to do these calculations in Excel, and the formula for simple interest, the amount you earn is I here in the formula, and it's equal to P times R times T. Principal is the amount you invested, the amount of money, R is the interest rate, and T is the time. And just further to break that down, the principal is always a dollar amount. Your rate is always the percent you're earning, but you need to write that as a decimal when you calculate the multiplication here. It has to be as a decimal. And your time is always measured in years. And that's because it needs to line up with your interest rate, which is typically given how much interest you earn a year. So our time needs to be in years as well. So our money times our decimal interest rate times the number of years. So let's just type out what we have here: 250, 4.75, and 3.25. There we go. So our interest is going to be equal to our principal times our interest rate. So slide the decimal 2 spots to the left to convert a percentage into a decimal. So 0.0475, and then times the number of years, which is 3.25. And then you get the amount of interest, simple interest, you have earned after the 3.25 years have passed. We're always going to round that to 2 decimal spots because that's how we do money. We use our cents go to 2 decimal places. Number 2, we have another simple interest problem similar to question 1. So for more of a detailed breakdown of the simple interest formula, see question 1. I talk through it a bit more. Going to just plug these values into the formula where they go. Our interest is P times R times T. P is the principal, so it's 525 multiplied by our interest rate as a decimal. Now, these need to be, your interest rate and your time need to be in the same denomination. We typically do years, the amount of interest you earn per year, and then your time is typically listed in years as well. I'm going to do that here. I need to work with what is given me. This is the interest rate per day, and we're told there's 360 days in a year that we're assuming is that many days that you earn interest is 360. So 0.053%, I need to convert that to how much per year that is. So 0.053, I'm going to multiply that by 360 to get how much interest I would earn for the entire year. So I'm getting 19.08%. All right, so I'm going to want to multiply that as a decimal. 19.08% would be 0.1908. And how many years do I have? 6 months is half a year. So I'm going to put 0.5 in there for half a year. And now that these are both in the same denomination, they're both in years, I have P times R times T. I hit enter and I get the amount of interest earned. I would want to round that to 2 decimal spots, 50.09. Question 3, again working with the simple interest formula. We are told 3 values in the formula, just like we have with questions 1 and 2, but this time the value we don't know, it's not the amount of interest. In this case, it's the interest rate. So how are we going to do that? We're going to use the same exact formula, but we have to do a little bit of algebra here. We're told what the interest is, and that equals P times R times T. So 1925 multiplied by our interest rate, which we don't know yet. So I'm just going to put an R there, and then multiplied by our time in years, which is 3 here. So put a 3. So we need to get R by itself so we can solve for what it is. With multiplication, it doesn't matter what order you do multiplication in, you'll get the same result. So I can go ahead and do 1925 times 3 on the right side here. And I'm going to need to type that in somewhere and actually calculate it out here. 1925 times 3. So 5,775. So our left side stays the same. I haven't changed anything. On the right side, I have 5,775 times R. Okay. So all I've done here, I'm copying down my equation, trying to get R by itself. I've just multiplied these two values together on the right. And now to get R by itself, I just need to divide by that amount on both sides. It'll only thing left on the right side then will be R. And so I'll have my solution. So I need to do 138.6 divided by 5,775. I do that, I get the interest rate as a decimal. And the formula, the percentage is always written as a decimal. So our interest rate as a decimal right here, to convert it to a percent, and you need to, notice there's a percent sign next to the answer box. As a percent, slide it 2 spots to the right, it's 2.4%. For number 4, a simple interest story problem. The woman's using a loan for a small business. We get the amount she borrows, which is the principal. We get the time listed in years here, 3 years, that she'll be borrowing the money for. And the simple interest rate is listed as well. So I'm going to come here. We're trying to figure out how much interest she's going to be charged on the loan. And the actual final answer we want to give is the amount of money the woman must repay when her loan's done after the 3 years is up. Well, she definitely has to pay back everything she borrowed. She definitely has to pay back at least $28,000. Now let's see how much interest is tacked on top of that as well. The interest is going to be equal to that $28,000 she borrowed, that principal times the rate as a percent, or it's listed as a percent, as a decimal, that's 0.017. And then the number of years. It says she borrowed the money for 3 years. So go ahead and type a 3. That's the amount of interest that she will owe to whoever she borrowed the money from. Well, she definitely has to pay back the amount she borrowed, the $28,000, plus that amount of interest. She has to pay back that total then is what she must repay when her loan period is up. And number 5, we have another story problem scenario. And there's also a good video to watch that goes along with this problem. And this situation is kind of similar to number 4, someone's borrowing money. This is dealing with a pawn shop. Someone's pawning their watch in this example. So they give the watch to the pawn shop and they get $120. So that they borrowed $120. 30 days later, to get that watch back, they have to pay $140. So they're paying back the amount they borrowed, $120, and an additional $20 in interest they're paying to that pawnbroker. So we're trying to find what interest rate is being charged. We need to enter that as a percentage, as you can see next to the answer box is the percent sign. So we know the interest is $20. The principal, the amount they borrowed, was $120. What we don't know is the interest rate being charged, and the time. We need to list that in years because our interest rate we're going to have that in years, so our time needs to be in years as well. Well, 30 days is how long the loan lasted for. So how much of a year is 30 days? If we're using 360 days in a year, we have 30 out of 360. So 30 divided by 360 is 0.08, and then the 3's go on forever. So I'm going to write that. I'll just do 4 3's right there to get a little more accuracy. Okay. This is our formula. We have 3 of the 4 pieces. We can use algebra to solve for the missing value, which is the interest rate R. I'm going to do the 120 times our decimal here. So let me do that. Equals 120 times 0.08. And I want to keep a lot of decimals here so I have some accuracy and I'm not overly rounding my result to the very end. So bringing down my equation here, I have 20 is equal to, and on the right side I've done that multiplication, and it's 9 point, all those 9's, and then it's 6. and multiplied by R. All right. So just doing that multiplication on the right, it's all I've done to my equation. And now to get R by itself, I just need to divide both sides by this value. And that will be my final answer. R will be equal to 20 divided by that value there. And so this is my interest rate, my annual per year interest rate that's being charged. To get that as a percent, you slide the decimal 2 spots to the right, and it would be 200% interest being charged by that pawnbroker.